Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Pakistan is once again facing a wave of terrorism that has shaken the entire nation. When we talk about the recent terrorism attacks, of course, over the past 10 months only, 1,500 attacks have claimed the lives of over 900 innocent people. And just last week, more than 16 people have been martyred. In today's program, we'll be talking about, of course, the dimensions of escalating terrorism threats that is largely emanating from Afghan soil. The banned Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, designated by the of course, government as Fitnat al-Khawarij, has claimed responsibility of these recent attacks. In today's program, we will be talking about different dimensions of this threat of terrorism in Pakistan and beyond. And of course, we'll also be talking about the decisions that have been taken by Apex Committee and what it holds for future of Pakistan and the regions that have been hit by violence. And of course, what needs to be done when it comes to National Action Plan. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Dr. Tughral Yamin, who is a security analyst. Welcome to the program. Dr. Tughral, let me start with the very basic question. Of course, the recent attack on our security personnel are, of course, in continuation of the threat. And how do you see that these Fitnat al-Khawarij have claimed responsibility? Of course, this is still continuation of the earlier attacks, and Global Terrorism Index is also saying that terrorism is increasing. What are, in your opinion, factors behind this escalation?
First of all, thank you very much, Maryam, for inviting me to your show. There are various factors involved in the uptick in terrorism incidents in Pakistan. The terrorists are feeling themselves increasingly emboldened for a number of reasons. First of all, they see there is political instability in the country. The political parties are fighting amongst themselves. And although today there is talks have started between PTI and the government, and I hope something good comes out of it, but that is one reason that these terrorists feel that since the government's attention is towards the internal politics, they would not be able to concentrate on them. Secondly, there is also some international pressure on Pakistan. You know that the Americans have recently said that Pakistan is producing missiles which can actually target USA, which is absurd, and it has been denied by our Foreign Office and ISPR. It doesn't make sense. But there are...
And now they are also trying to distance themselves from
yeah,
it, from these claims.
Pentagon has issued a contradictory statement. But still, what I'm trying to tell you is that there are internal pressures and there are external pressures. And these people feel that they can get away while the government is, government's attention is away from it. So this is one major reason, but I don't think government is oblivious of what is happening. Government is taking decisions. They have already, as you mentioned, the Apex Committee has met, and it has been agreed upon that areas of KP which are violence-ridden will be evacuated, will be vacated, and full-scale military operation would be launched.
We will be coming back to the Apex Committee decision, but to talk more about the recent, of course, surge in violence in terrorism, we are joined online by Brigadier Retired Ghazanfar Shah, who is defense analyst. Welcome to the program. Brigadier Saab, when we talk about, of course, recent attack on our security forces in which 16 soldiers have been martyred, what, in your opinion, are the reasons behind this, especially keeping in mind Pakistan's counter-terrorism strategy? What needs to be done?
Thank you very much. First of all, whatever Tughral has said, that's very that contains a paramount importance. That whenever there is a political instability in the country in any form, whether in the form of the collaboration between the parties or it is in the form of the governance. The second thing is that the apparatus which has to deal with the counter-terrorism, and this is not the first time that we are witnessing an attack on the army post. It is in continuity, it is going on. This was the I mean, scouts posts, which were 16 very valuable lives have been lost. Before that also, though, there's a pattern of attack which takes place. It's a fire raid. It is initially initiated by a vehicle laden by the IED, by the explosive which strikes the place, and then there's a fire raid. So there's a pattern which is going on. Now, if the pattern is going on continuously, and the same thing is happening on the different posts, and you see whatever happened in Dasu against the Chinese engineers, and when the backtrack was done, it initiated from Afghanistan, came to Chaman, crossed over to the border, and then came into Pakistan, and then was parked in Dasu for a number of days. So, yeah, the big question here which arises is, or which would arise in the mind of every thinking person, that where is that intelligence which has to be initiated, where is that information which has to be initiated by prior to these attacks? Okay, one attack can take place, two can take place, three can take place, but if it is going in continuity, it means there is something lacking in your intelligence system. And intelligence system, once you compare the whole intelligence system, it is not only the not only the human intelligence system, it is to be accompanied by the technical intelligence system, it is to be accompanied by the electronic intelligence system. What happened after 9/11 in America? They used to record every call which was coming to or being initiated out of the Americans. So there is the second thing which is of paramount importance, there is lack of early information. There is some defect in your intelligence system, whether it is at the provincial level, the KPK level, or it is at the federal level. Because of that lack of the intelligence, and we know this, there's no doubt in that all these attacks are being planned, being initiated, being financed from outside the country, from Afghanistan. So if they are being done by Afghanistan, the third thing which comes in between, what is our foreign policy doing? You see, if you have to see the performance of the government, as I told you, it has to be in different aspects. And then very important thing is where is that?
That is another debate. Let's just stick to the topic at hand, Brigadier Saab. And talking about weaknesses, let me take the same point to Dr. Tughral. Dr. Tughral, what's your take on this? Of course, the weaknesses in our system, the gaps in our system we have. But at the same time, we know that these militants and Khawarij have access to latest technology, latest weaponry that was left behind by US. So what needs to be done by the government to curb those kind of technological gaps that we have at this point in time?
What they have, they have. You can't do anything about it unless you bomb them out of this world. You see, they have, if you say that they have modern technology, then they have the modern technology. The only thing to counter them is to have better technology or better tactics. So what Ghazanfar Saab
or engage with Afghan Taliban government?
We have been constantly engaging with them. We've been telling them about our reservations of what we feel about their territory or their soil being used by these people who are attacking our country. So they usually just shrug their shoulders and say that it is your problem, not our problem. My understanding is probably they do not have the writ of the state on all parts of Afghanistan, particularly in the border belt. So that is one thing. But definitely we need to improve our intelligence system, as Brigadier Ghazanfar was rightly pointing out. All disasters, man-made or natural, are a result of poor intelligence. Even if it's a climate disaster, then you're not watching what is about to happen.
Not foreseeing correctly.
Not foreseeing correctly, exactly. So you have the means to foresee things. You have agencies, you have technical means to see that. You have patterns, you have analysts who.
But Dr. Saab, at the same time, we know that these elements and Khawarij, as government has designated them, have been, of course, operating with impunity from Afghan government, and you alluded to earlier that Pakistan have been trying to engage with them earlier. What is the role of international actors in this?
International actors are not bothered. The international actors would only be bothered if they are being affected by what is happening in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And Pakistan's permanent representative in the United Nations has said that the Taliban or Khawarij or whatever nuisance they are, they can become the next Al-Qaeda in Pakistan. Pakistani permanent rep in New York has said that, trying to win over the sympathies of the world at large, because they're afraid of only Al-Qaeda or their affiliates. And so Pakistan has
they
said
see TTP as their Pakistan's internal issue.
They see it or they don't see it, they're not bothered, because we are at the receiving end. Our children and our women and our security men are being killed by these bad people. Call them by any name, they are bad people. So these bad people are having a field day because the Afghan government is too weak to control them. The world at large is not bothered. You remember when after the Americans had achieved what they wanted to achieve in Afghanistan, they just walked off. They just shook off the dust which they had gathered on their clothes and said that we are leaving now. And that led to 9/11. We all know it's recent history, because we allowed Afghan territory to be used by Al-Qaeda. And that is what Pakistan is trying to tell them. Another Al-Qaeda is in the making, because these people are veritably an extension of the international terrorist organizations, and they make use of their platforms. They can make use of Al-Qaeda, they can make use of IS, they can make use of any powerful entity which can achieve their aims. So they are trying to create chaos in Pakistan through terrorist activities, and this does not augur well for our future.
Right, and Brigadier Saab, of course we know that cross-border terrorism remains a significant issue for Pakistan. In your opinion, what is the role, or what should be the role of regional actors like China, Iran?
You see, as far as you are talking of the regional actor, and you take the connectivity of the terrorism with other countries, if I'm not wrong, about a week back it was reported that the Chinese delegation went to Afghanistan to talk on behalf of Pakistan. But probably Afghanis refused to listen to them. And China obviously has very high stakes in Afghanistan. They are, you know that they are undertaking about 400, they are undertaking the exploration in the Amur River Basin for oil. And they have another $10 billion project with the Afghanistan going on concerning to lithium. So there is economic connectivity of Afghanistan and China. Iran has no economic connectivity, but Iran shares border with Afghanistan in view of the present situation, which is developing not in region but internationally as compared to Syria. And whatever is happening in Syria, Iran is directly affected. And this has to be realized by Afghanistan also, that if something goes wrong and as the American policies or the Western policies are, if they come to the area closer to their border, then there will be another war in Afghanistan, another skirmish in Afghanistan also. And if something happens bad to Pakistan, it will go to Afghanistan also. So the geopolitical realities which are to be understood by Afghanistan, probably as Tughral has very rightly said, there is no form of the tangible government probably in Afghanistan. It is the combination of different groups. Now, if you see Fitna al-Khawarij, whom are they were supported by? Sirajuddin Haqqani network, Haqqani, which is in a very important position in Afghan government, is supporting all these Fitna al-Khawarij. Hafiz Gul Bahadur, who is leading this Fitna al-Khawarij, has repeatedly said that we have got very secure and very good refuge in Afghanistan through Sirajuddin Haqqani. So Pakistan, if engaging Afghanistan, and Afghanistan is not directly talking to Pakistan, while getting sufficient funds, a lot of funds and lot of aid from India, it means they are backing on India for their political and for their economic support instead of backing on Afghanistan, instead backing on Pakistan.
Of course, you rightly pointed out the important point of terror financing to these, of course, elements by India and other actors. But at the same time, the question is, and question remains, what Pakistan should be doing? Should Pakistan be engaging in direct attacks, direct cross-border attacks to curb these elements? And if so, what would be the repercussions of such attacks?
the attacks would continue as they are. You see, the attacks are not stopping, and the Afghan government or the government in Afghanistan refuses to cooperate in stoppage of the pilferage of these Fitna al-Kharij people from Afghanistan to Pakistan. But we cannot throw all the blame on Afghanistan. We know, and it has been established, that all those weapons which you pointed out are being carried by these Fitna al-Kharij people, and they are using them as compared to night vision goggles, thermal imagers, and all those things. They were the weapons which were left by Americans intentionally, and Americans knew that these weapons are going to fall into hand of those elements which are going to create trouble in Pakistan. And the recent American statements and whatever they are saying, it is though it will not affect Pakistan as far as the missile technology is concerned, but it's symbolic in a view to indicate that America is not supporting Pakistan when it comes to relation with China. That was America was opposing CPAC. So those weapons are in the hands of these Fitna al-Kharij, and no effort is being made to curtail or to restrict these people to undertake terrorist activities in Pakistan. Now, Pakistan has to devise a policy. At this point of time, remember, it is only the responsibility of Pakistan government.
Right, and talking about policy, of course, I'll repeat my question to you that I asked Brigadier Sahab earlier. Of course, we know that these elements have safe havens in Afghanistan. When talking about targeted attacks by Pakistani government across border, do you think going forward we should be going towards that policy to curb those elements? And if so, would there be any repercussions for Pakistan and the region?
There will be international repercussions. We have targeted Afghans inside Afghanistan, but we cannot do it as on a whole-scale measure. It would amount to war.
What about targeted operations?
We have done that, but it cannot be a policy. You can do it once, you can do it twice, but if you continue doing it, then it will amount to war, and you will be going against the principles of United Nations organization, where you can only retaliate in a measured way in case you are attacked. So it has to be directly proportional to what you have suffered. But you have a point, you can do it, but then you will be opening an entirely new front for yourself. So now it is just against the militants or terrorists or Fitna al-Kharij, then it will be against the Afghan government. And Afghan government is getting international recognition slowly and readily. The Russians want to recognize them. The Saudis have reopened their embassy over there. The Chinese want to do business with them. So you cannot do it. And as Brigadier Saab has just said, the Chinese have spoken on behalf of Pakistan. The other people have been speaking on behalf of Pakistan, but my take on it is that the Taliban government is too weak to take any action against the people who are on their territory and who are attacking Pakistan. They lost their own minister a few days back, Khalil Haqqani. Haqqani group, as you know, is one of the most powerful groups forming the government right now. So they are themselves being attacked.
They are not able to defend themselves, so of course we cannot rely on them.
Right, and they have also annoyed their own people also by not allowing the women to work or going to schools or colleges. So they have their own problems. So taking war into their territory would amount to another very serious infringement of international law, and I won't recommend it on a long-term basis. That's what I think about it.
Right. But at the same time, Dr. Saab, this leads me to my next question. Of course, we have to deal with this increasing threat of cross-border terrorism. What legal or military mechanisms exist under international law for Pakistan to curb these cross-border terrorism threats that are emanating from Afghanistan, and they are increasing when we look at the recent attacks?
A number of diplomatic measures can be taken, and Pakistan is taking that. Pakistan has been sending its own delegations to Afghanistan on a number of occasions, and we continue to do that. We continue to engage with them. Their acting charge d'affaires is called for discussions in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also in our think tanks. He is a constant guest, and people do pose questions to him. They sensitize him about our worries, And we have been talking to the international players also. It's not that we don't engage with them. We have been telling them, and as I just mentioned, that our permanent rep has brought up this issue in the United Nations, that this is something very serious. So it's not that we are keeping quiet. Militarily, we are trying to make our borders as impregnable as possible. But again, if somebody allows a bomb-laden car to enter your territory without checking in, then there's something seriously wrong. And intelligence failures can take place anywhere. Recently, there's been a terrorist attack in Germany, in Magdeburg, where a Saudi national plowed his car into a group of people trying to celebrate
Islamophobic
Christmas. And then the Germans say that this is a big intelligence failure because this fellow was on our radars. So sometimes you are seeing people and you are not taking action. So it happens in the most advanced countries also. 9/11 is a prime example. It happened in the United States of America, which is perhaps technologically the most advanced country in the world.
Right, right. These are, of course, contextual questions and the gaps that we have discussed. But moving forward, Brigadier Saab, we know that a meeting of Apex Committee, KP Apex Committee have, of course, decided to dismantle bunkers and confiscate heavy weapons in Kurram to restore peace. How feasible, in your opinion, is this strategy?
Feasibility, yes. Time period, unknown. You know, because this is not the problem that today I personally feel in Kurram. It's been over the years, 90 years, 70 years since the creation of Pakistan. And these things have been going on. And you know, the bunkers present there have been named as Qawmi bunker. And then there's the Qawmi, area also where the weapons are deposited. So the Jarga took place. The Apex Committee decided. Then there was the helicopter service which was started day before yesterday, and they evacuated number of people who were hauled up. Somebody has to go out, somebody had to go for their treatment. So KP government helicopter was being used in evacuating those people. Now, the date has been given, set up by the February, that you have to de-weaponize and you have to finish the bunker. The finishing of the bunker is not a problem, I personally feel, because it is uprooting which has to be take place by the physical means. But deposit of the weapons is a big question in Kurram. And I personally feel, as far as my knowledge goes, of today or day before yesterday, both the groups were resisting depositing of the weapons, and they went to consult their organization. Like if you see Shia, there's an organization by the name of Anjuman Hussainiya, which overlooks all the decisions which are taken by the Shia. Similarly, if you see the Sunnis, they have their own organization which oversees all the decisions which are taken by them. So it's a difficult affair, but I think if it is done and if it is implemented, that is side by side with this, the problems which are related to their land affairs and the land cases, that is also being dealt alongside with the deposit of the weapons and the de-weaponization. I think that will be able to bring a ceasefire, and that will be able to bring some stoppages in the tension which is presently on in Kurram agency. Though to settle the problem, I think it will take a long time, and it will only happen if the government, and if once I talk of the government, I talk of the provincial government which is in KPK, and I talk of the federal government which is in federation. Both these governments are combined together, undertake the measures and listen to the deprivation or listen to the problems which people are facing. You see, you imagine that for the 23, 24, 25 days, the road was completely blocked. The people didn't have anything to eat. There was nothing to burn. There was nothing to take heat. It was such a low temperature which was going on in Kurram, and people suffered a lot. So the government has to come, both the governments have to come proactively in front and engage with the people to solve their problem. If you just say that one Jarga is going to solve that problem and after that everything will be hunky-dory, I think that is not going to happen.
Right.
These efforts.
How significant are these grand jirgas and reconciliation processes when we talk about these as a strategy for peace in these conflict hit areas moving forward?
In the scenario of the KPK, where the Jirgas enjoy a very important position in settling the affairs of the tribes, in settling the affairs of the different sectarian groups or different tribal groups, it gains importance because all the Mishrans, and when you talk of the Mishran, you talk of those people who enjoy the influence in their clan, by way of either by way of their age, by way of their experience, or by way of their influence in their tribes. So that is very important. But what I was trying to say is that along with Jirga, you have to revisit your rules and regulations because it's no more a federal, it's no more FATA. It is part of the KPK government, it is the part of the KPK promise. And all those large laws which are implemented in Peshawar or Kohat or in other areas, they are equally applicable in Kurram agencies also. So along with the Jirga and the decision taken in the Jirga, which are being overlooked by the apex, by the civilians also, and by the army counterpart also, those things once decided have to be implemented. But along with that, you have to implement your own rules and regulations which are implemented in rest of the country. And anybody violating the rules and regulations, violating the discipline, has been taken to the task. And may he be belonging to any sect, may he be belonging to any tribe. So until unless there is writ of law in that area where this problem is taking place, and its problem is not related to Kurram. You see, the attack which took place, it was not in Kurram. It was on a road where the convoy was moving. It means that road is not secure. And I have no hesitation in saying that. I believe that it was not the act of Sunnis who did it. If you take it as a Shia Sunni, it was actually Fitna al-Kharij who exploited this situation, and it was again planned, perpetuated in Afghanistan with the aid of RAW and with the assistance of the RAW and with the advice of the RAW, which is Indian intelligence agency. So they exploited the situation and they converted into Shia Sunni fight, and there have been a number of
Right. Let me take the same question to Dr. Tughral. Dr. Tughral, what's your take on this? Of course, we know that KP government's, of course, Apex committee recently decided to dismantle all these bunkers, and we also know that the tribal conflicts and deeply rooted sectarian violence has been an issue in some of the areas, but these Khawarij are exploiting that gap. Moving forward, how feasible is this strategy to address those issues that are deep rooted in those areas?
First of all, I think Brigadier Ghazanfar is absolutely right when he says that the root causes should be eradicated, and root cause does not mean only removing bunkers or de-weaponizing them. I think there are economic problems, and all quarrels or all conflicts emerge from people not getting their right. So I don't think it's purely a sectarian issue, although yes, it's exploited. It's exploited by the religious elements who incite.
But there are inter-tribal conflicts. Do you think that is also happening?
There are inter-tribal conflicts, and that is the reason they have been allowed to maintain their tribal arsenals. They are allowed to keep the weapons. The English had allowed them to do it, and our government allowed them to do it because they said we cannot protect ourselves. Either provide us protection or allow us to keep our own arms and ammunition. But this is got to end. We are not a primitive society over there. We know that these are agencies of tribal areas, no more tribal areas. They come under the writ of the federal government and the provincial government. So the federal government and provincial government should now take over the responsibilities also. If the economic progress has to be made, they should do it. They should eradicate whatever problems are there. They should have industry over there. They should let people work. They should open up the roads, as very rightly pointed out. The 200 buses or cars or wagons which were attacked were moving in a convoy when they were attacked. So, and they were, in fact, they were forced to move in a convoy because they couldn't move on the roads. The routes were blocked. So the government has to take ownership, both provincial and the federal government, and the problems of the people have to be eradicated. we see that the hospitals were not well stocked. I believe 50 children have died because of lack of medicines. So why did that happen? The hospitals should have medicines for a very long time, for a year or 2 years. So food is not there. Again, why did that happen? I'm sure there are government stores where you store grain and crop for whatever. It's not like that day-to-day business that.
But there were some gaps that militants have been exploiting for some time now, and we know that in the recent Apex Committee meeting, the decision has been made to temporarily evacuate some of the areas of Khyber and Bannu. Do you think that is, logistically possible? What kind of challenges might arise? Of course, that is very significant to cleanse those areas of militants as well.
Yeah, Maryam, this is a huge logistic exercise, and Pakistan,
and we have to keep in mind the humanitarian aspect as well.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. But it's been done before. In Rahe-e-Najat, Swat was actually evacuated, and people of Swat were brought down to the plains. They were brought to Mardan and surrounding areas, and then the army took kinetic actions against the people who were left there, and the militants or terrorists. So this, it's whenever you move somebody from his house, then it is a problem. You are removing him from his sources of income, and this cannot be for a prolonged period. Okay, you can remove the people for say 2 months, 3 months, because even then people will not leave their orchards, or they will not leave their cattle, they will not leave their shops, they will leave behind somebody, and these people can come into the crossfire. So this is a huge logistic exercise. It can cause a lot of trauma. Then these people who are coming from these areas are very conservative. They don't want their women folk to be in refugee camps where they are exposed to steering from strangers. So this is,
of course, they have their culture, and we have to respect that also, culture.
And you have to provide them transport to move out, and this was done in case of Swat, and it costs money, and then you have to move them back. So it's a huge exercise which you have to conduct, and then you have to pay them money also. Last time they gave them Pakistan cards, which they
utilize in other parts of the areas. And let me take the same, of course, question to Brigadier Sahab. Brigadier Sahab, what lessons can be learned from, of course, previous such exercises when we talk about eradicating militants from such conflict-hit areas?
See, it has to be a very calculative exercise, and we have faced a debacle in the last such an exercise where the whole area was evacuated, and people are still carrying on the burns of that exercise, where they left their home, they came out, and then their repatriation to those areas was not facilitated. So what happened? You create anti-state feeling in such an affair that we are already suffering because of the terrorist activities going on, because of all those pressures going on, and then there are the economic pressure. There are, as Tughral said, there are social pressures, because the women in that area, you know how parda oriented, or how close they live in their own houses. They are not exposed to such like things. That as a computer, you have to take human angle in view also. There are women who are suffering from a lot of such diseases which are not there, which they do not expose to anybody else. What will you do about that? So I think one should make an effort to cleanse the area of the militants by not evacuating the whole of the population. And here I say, this is the point where whole of your intelligence network, your social network, your administrative network. Now, as it is part of KPK, so it means there was a deputy commissioner, there has to be assistant commissioner, there has to be a patwari, there has to be SP, there has to be a special branch, there have to be people, there have to be the informants of the police also. So what are they doing? It is their job to identify such people who are creating trouble in a society, in an area. Instead of evacuating the whole population, you have to target your exercise to those.
Of course. Of course, this should be targeted, and humanitarian aspect should be kept in mind, and government is going to be trying its best to keep that in mind moving forward. We will be witnessing that, how that is going to be happening. Thank you very much, Brigadier Retired Ghazanfar Ali Shah, for joining us in today's program. And moving forward, of course, Dr. Tughral, when we talk about this issue, social media platforms remain an important aspect. Spreading misinformation, especially when we talk about sectarian violence. How important is it for the government that when we eradicate this threat of terrorism, that we in a healthy way control that misinformation?
It's a very difficult task. Social media is totally unregulated, and it's very difficult for the government to stop disinformation or misinformation which is being spread by social media. And unfortunately, our educated people are also very fond of forwarding messages. So one should understand that when you send a wrong message or you send a message which can create trouble within the society, you should restrict yourself, restrain yourself. So these are things which I think all of us are responsible for, to educate our friends, our children, our elders, that please don't do it. This is not good for the country. This is not good for the health of the country. So social media, yes, it is a whole new world, and people use it to exploit feelings of
So
hatred.
Yeah, of course,
conflict.
that remains an important aspect. Moving forward, Dr. Saab, when we talk about government launched National Action Plan, and when we look at it, of course, in its earlier years, we know that the terror threat was reduced by 30%. But still, when we look at different reports, 14 of its points remain unaddressed. In your opinion, what are the issues, what are the challenges that National Action Plan faced in, of course, implementation of its, when we talk about its true spirit?
First of all, Maryam, I think will, national will. The National Action Plan very clearly states that nobody would be allowed to maintain private militias. But here we see that these Khawarij are private militias, and they're being allowed to form, reform, being armed, being funded by various people. Hate speech is banned, but as you mentioned yourself, social media is adding fuel to fire. So these things are difficult to implement, they are difficult to impose. And also, I think one major reason why the National Action Plan has not been able to come to its true potential is that we have not strengthened our National Counter-Terrorism Authority, NACTA. I think it needs to be strengthened. It needs to, you don't find them anywhere. Apart from holding conferences and seminars, you don't find NACTA anywhere. The NACTA is the basic, should be the basic primary agency fighting these wars and dousing out these fires. They are not doing it.
And a lot of coordination is also required,
yes,
of course.
And even they are not, I don't fault them. We have not provided them the wherewithal to do it. They should be actually in a commanding position. They should be telling everybody what to do and what not to do, and even if they are just coordinating there, they should be acting as a very powerful secretariat. Unfortunately, we have not allowed them to blossom or function in a proper way.
Right, and moving forward, we are joined online by Mr. Zahir Shirazi, who is a senior journalist. Welcome to the program, Mr. Zahir. Of course, when we talk about a National Action Plan, the revised National Action Plan in 2021 emphasized reforms in criminal justice system and, of course, law enforcement capacity as well, like Dr. Saab earlier alluded to as well. Do you think that these reforms have been adequately implemented, and if not, what needs to be done at this point in time?
Oh, well, thank you very much, Maryam. As I was hearing Dr. Saab and continue what he told, perhaps there is a lack of will and also lack of coordination among various law enforcement agencies. Yes, obviously we have launched massive operations, kinetic operations in the tribal areas. We have flushed out the militants from these regions. especially in North and South Waziristan, which once remained their nerve center and operational bases. But after that, I think what have been done, the National Action Plan was not literally implemented in real spirit. And obviously, all those sympathizers, all those supporters who had been in the urban areas of Pakistan and their sleeper cells, they are still active. The extremist tendencies and the extremist elements, or which had been supporting these elements in terms of their finances, in terms of their logistic support, and other things, actually, they had not been countered. Especially, I would just refer, I would not be mincing any words in saying that the bases in the larger province, Punjab, and in the urban cities of Karachi, like some other cities where they had sympathizers, where they are collecting charities, they are pumping in money and supporting all these militants and outlawed groups which are fighting the Pakistani state. So this is one thing. Perhaps the National Action Plan, which was like initiated after the APS attack, unfortunately, again, we again this time, like December 16 was again the doomsday for the people of all Pakistan, especially the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, where more than 139 those innocent children were killed by the terrorists. So this is one point. The second thing, what you referring that what should be done? Actually, the religio-political parties who still had a lot of say on these groups, they had failed to engage them. Perhaps one thing is that. Second, the border issues are very serious because what we were
Right.
earlier suspecting that perhaps after the takeover of Kabul by the Afghan
Right,
Taliban.
right. We have discussed in length about the cross-border terrorism from Afghanistan, Mr. Shirazi, but let me come back to the studios and, of course, last question to Dr. Tughral. Dr. Tughral, when we talk about, of course, terrorism and different aspects of it, there is some hope and light as well. So let's talk about this. Pakistan has, of course, come out of FATF's grey list as well. How can Pakistan keep up that momentum?
I think Pakistan is already trying to do that. 10 years ago, we were talking about the former tribal areas being governed by FCR. FCR is no more the effective law in these areas. So the government's whatever penal code or whatever laws are there by the federal government and provincial governments are applicable in these areas. So we are moving there slowly and steadily, but everything takes time. You cannot suddenly change the tribal areas into a civilized society, or you cannot suddenly provide them with the best administration which is available in cities. But it can be expedited. But more than that, we have to, first of all, the internal situation which is prevalent in the country. Again, I'm hopeful the talks have started today, and I'm very hopeful that it will augur well for the country. And then we have to look after our economy also. Our economy is also improving. Again, yesterday, the stock market had a bull run. They crossed the 3,000 mark. So things are improving. They will take time. One doesn't have to be hopeless. I think one should keep the positive aspect always on the top.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Tughral Yamin, for joining us in today's program and for your valuable input. Of course, moving forward, Mr. Shirazi, when we talk about APIC's committee meeting, it highlighted the importance of not scoring political points when we talk about terrorism. What needs to be done by all the stakeholders, in your opinion?
First of all, Apex Committee is one of the supreme body when it comes to like the provincial level. And the other day there was a meeting. The Interior Minister was here. The Corps Commander Peshawar was here. The IGFC, the IG Police, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and perhaps they were like on one page in countering the increasing threats which is coming from one from the militant activity, the terrorist activities in the tribal area. The second, also the Quorum issue was literally discussed. But first of all, like I would say, there need to be a close coordination, not only between the law enforcement agencies, the federal and the provincial both, and the Pakistani security forces which are operating actively. You have the other day there was a severe attack where we lost like 25 plus soldiers. And perhaps these hit and run attack by the militant, they need a proper strategy to be countered. The intelligence-based operations are going on. It is very important. But still, I would say coordination between the provincial and the federal government. This is very important because the tribal areas which are bordering another country, I think it have to be taken seriously. The federal government has its own input. Yes, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa government and the police don't have the capacity to fight terrorism. The counter-terrorism department, which was formed to counter the terrorist activities in the urban areas, so they need to be equipped more. Actually, if we come across like overall the tribal belt, we have done a lot of work, but still the governance issues are there, the poor governance system, the rehabilitation, slow process of rehabilitation, and then the development of these war-hit areas. This is very important. Unless and until we don't have economic activity there, we don't have the job opportunities for the youth there, the education system, it is not put in place. Perhaps, yes, the army and the law enforcement agencies are doing a lot of good in Moman, in Khyber Agency, in North and South Waziristan. You have a network of those private schools which are run by the security forces, the cadet colleges. So a lot has been done, but still on the what we can say on the governance side, the district administrations and the provincial government, it has to be like more focused on the governance side of rehabilitating these tribal areas. Until and unless you don't have a mechanism of administering these tribal areas and the war-hit areas, the problems would prevail. Active operations are very important, yes, but you have to take the people into confidence to join the government, support the government and law enforcement agencies against these Khawarij, which are creating law and order problem, not only law and order problem, but they are destroying the very socio-economic uplift of these tribal areas.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Zahir Shirazi, for joining us in today's program and for your valuable input. Of course, when we talk about Pakistan's fight against terrorism, it is not a battle for today, but it is our struggle for the future of our nation. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.